Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. This is episode number 70, and I'm your host Ellis, otherwise known of course as Trainman. And this week, well, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do this week. Obviously we have a lot to do, so I'm really just going to start trying to fill this area in with dirt and such. Although this should probably be trees, I don't really want to mess with trees right now, so I'll leave that alone. The reason I don't want to mess with trees right now is not because of the obvious the game could crash, but the less obvious the game could crash while I'm downloading a lot of stuff off the DLS in the background. Now, I usually don't like to make episodes while I'm busy downloading stuff, because, well, A, I'm in double trouble if the game crashes and I'm downloading things, but B, also I need to get grid. I need to regrid this so I can see what the levels are. But B, show me the grid. Not Grodd. I am Grodd. But B, when something starts installing, then problems. So, this is like the old grid. It's not even like, there's no eraser. It's just texture. And this is just a texture, but it at least lets me see sort of what I'm looking at in terms of slope here, so I know what this reminds me of a simpler time. Okay, so we gotta do the details first. Glaz would tend to agree. Oh, right. So if I don't want to lose what I'm downloading, and not like lose it like it's going to disappear, but like I forgot everything I download. I just sort of hit the download button on a lot of things. Trust me, I have serious problems when I go to those websites with the 50 buttons, where you're not supposed to hit 49 of them. I just download everything. I've got like weird porn, viruses, all sorts of stuff like that. It's all here. I get it all. It's all good. Also, let me turn the scale up, because now it's looking bad. It saved my scale, which is not what I wanted to do. So, that's a joke, obviously. I don't just go and mash buttons on sketchy websites. But I do download a lot for trains. I download a lot of things that I don't necessarily need, but because Tollbrand is Tollbrand, and I need a lot of assets for that, when I go on the DLS, I tend to start downloading a lot. Currently, I'm downloading some bridges, and a lot of New Haven engines, and some New York Central stuff, old Cumberland train stuff, including Sally's old model. Also, worth mentioning, as of me recording this, K&L's Sally has just come out, which is awesome. Except now I'm going to spend money on it. That's the downside. The downside is I just can't help myself. Somebody take my wallet away from me. Now, I would wait, normally, until all of the downloads are done before I start recording. But, see, I've spent most of the day downloading stuff so far, and it's already Saturday. I had a lot of stuff to do on, last couple of days, Thursday, Friday, where I would normally be recording this, or, recording this because I missed it on Thursday, in the case of Friday. But there were a few things going on in my life. One of them was a company holiday party, which, that was pretty cool. I had a +1, Madison and I went. It was a little ways away because it's for the office out in Glastonbury, Connecticut, which is already an hour and 20 minutes from me, but this was more like 2 hours from me. And so we hopped in the car, we drove all the way out there, we had a free meal, we talked with some people about some things, and yeah. And then went home. We cut out kind of early compared to most everyone else, but we did have a much longer drive than a lot of people. There were only a couple of other Rhode Islanders out there, including my boss, which, he's from the same town as my girlfriend, or as Madison. I call her my girlfriend. You guys know who she is by this point. She's been featured in enough things, and honestly I was tempted to have her in this, but she had to work, and that would have only been if I had made this last night, which I wasn't going to do when we got back. We were both exhausted. Long car rides are nice, but sometimes they tucker you out. Getting there was a lot of traffic because it started to flurry, and I guess people started to panic. It happens. Even with those very well versed in the stuff. I think everyone was worried that it would be like last time. See, last time, that snowstorm that I described, last episode or the episode before? It was the episode before. It was episode 68, I think. Last time, it was kind of a disaster because nobody was prepared for that. I mean, obviously bread and milk, but, the towns and cities weren't prepared for that. The state wasn't prepared for that. They didn't have anybody out, really, plowing the roads. The plows that you saw were people that had plows strapped to the front of their trucks. And sometimes those people are contracted by the city. But, everything I heard, a lot of complaints, especially in New York City, which didn't really pertain to me, but I'm on the New York City subreddit because I do love that city. And I just, I read things, people like, the city was totally unprepared for this gigantic snowstorm. And it really wasn't that big. It was only like 4 or 5 inches in places. Although, there was more snow a little bit farther north. But they didn't have plow trucks at the ready. They didn't have salt ready. They didn't have people ready. So it really went a lot worse than it, otherwise would have if it was like, yeah, no, we're going to get this wicked snowstorm. And yeah, and so be prepared. Nobody was prepared. So yeah, that's an issue. That was definitely an issue. That definitely contributed to how things went a couple Thursdays ago. But after that I talked about all my Volvo escapades in that snowstorm, which was really entertaining, although now I have new Volvo escapades to report, and this is specifically about one that I do not drive. At least not yet. So, my mom bought a 1994 Volvo 940 sedan. Very nice. It was a special order. It was owned by a guy who was in the military, I believe, and he was overseas or whatever. It didn't get a lot of use from 1994 to 1998 when she bought it. And, she picked up this thing. Very nice, cloth interior, dark blue, inside and out. So obviously it's kind of hell in the summer, but whatever. She kept that thing for 14 years, from when I was 2 years old to when I got my license, and then passed it on to me. So it was, this is the Volvo. You now have the Volvo. Of course, that's what got me started. That was my gateway drug. But I crashed it on Thanksgiving into my stepmom's car in the driveway by doing the idiot new driver thing and stepping on the wrong pedal. Not my proudest moment. But I couldn't get rid of the car. I couldn't bear to get rid of it. And I'm also just not good at, I didn't want to go through the hassle of trying to sell it either. So there was it was twofold. Needed a lot of work. So obviously me going into college, or having been in college for a couple of months at that point, and of course, as it goes, being broke, I asked my aunt to let me keep it in her garage. And it stayed there for pretty much exactly 4 years. And now, it has come out. And I don't have a picture to show you. Maybe I'll, I don't really have a way to show pictures. But it's come out of the garage for the first time in 4 years. Because my cousin, who lives at that residence, has a car of her own that's just about as old. It's a 1998. It's a Saturn, and it's lasted her a very, very long time. And just recently, the transmission basically blew up on her. It gave up the ghost. The car said, I'm done. And so she's looking at getting rid of it. She wants to, maybe get a few $100 on Craigslist. But she doesn't want to keep it in the driveway, because in the driveway, there are these big divots. It's a really old driveway. It probably could use a resurfacing. And when it snows, and then it melts, and then it freezes, it'll freeze to the underside of the car, and it'll freeze the tires. And it'll ruin the tires, and she doesn't want to have that happen. So she asked me if I could move my car so she could put her car in the garage for the time being. And I said, okay, I'll sort something out with my mechanic. My mechanic said, I can't take it yet, give me 2 weeks. And I said, I don't really have 2 weeks, so now I have to find something to do. Madison's parents were very nice. I asked them if I could, I asked her father, namely, if I could keep the car in their driveway for a couple of weeks. He said yes after like 2 sentences into my spiel. You go into this thing, you're asking your girlfriend's parents for something. Girlfriend's parents who are, sometimes a little bit standoffish, especially her mom, but it wasn't her mom I was dealing with, where I started, I started with this spiel. I was ready to give this, long, it'll only be a couple of weeks. I really appreciate it, If you could do this for me, it would be a huge, I'd owe you whatever, blah, 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 blah. I got, 2 sentences into it, I need a parking spot for my car. He goes, okay. Alright, that went a lot easier. I even had bread. I had a bag of bread with me, good Italian bakery bread, and I was bringing it as, a peace offering for them. I left them with it anyway, because we had a lot of bread in my house. There was a buy one, get one sale. My dad bought a second bag of bread, and he was like, bring them this bread, because there's no way we're going to eat all of this before it goes bad. I know that my stepmom is away on vacation, so it's literally just him and I, and 2 giant bags of bread. So, yeah, we're trying not to be fat by the time she gets back. So, yeah, we had to get rid of the bread. Anyway, I gave them this bread. They offered to, they let me have a spot in their driveway, but I ended up not needing it. And I need to go back and say, hey, I don't need it. I just don't like communicating that way over text. I'd rather just go and, tell them. But obviously, I assume they're waiting, hey, when's this car showing up? I just haven't heard from them either, so obviously they're not too keen on communicating by text either. Question mark? But I digress. The fact of the matter is, or the end of the story, or the next step of the story goes, we get there, we go into the garage, of course the car, oh my god. The garage has been invaded by squirrels at some point in the last 4 years. There's literally just squirrel poop everywhere, and squirrel tracks in the dust all up and down the windshield. I was, of course, afraid that the squirrels had gotten into the engine bay and eaten up all my wires, but I looked and it didn't seem bad. I was tempted to have my dad turn around and try to jump the car, not to start it, but just to see if all the lights came on, because, maybe they would. And that would sort of indicate, yeah, the electronics are still good in the car. That's a huge thing. At least some of them. Some of the electronics need to be replaced because when the airbags go off, it's kind of a one-time deal. You're not supposed to, when they go off, that's kind of the end of it. They're supposed to save your life and that's it. Modern cars are much more, much more designed to be that way. And I've talked about how that might be a good thing or a bad thing, I think, in the past. Because cars these days are much more expendable than cars in those days. They're designed to, crumple around you and transfer the momentum away from you, which means you can survive much worse crashes than you could in an older car. Quality of construction aside. But, just like in a more modern car, the airbag system is sort of a one and done. Once it goes off, you, basically don't have to, or, there's nothing else you can do with the car. You have to throw money at it to get that airbag system, the SAS system. I'm not sure what SAS stands for, so I assume the second S is system. So SAS system is totally redundant. Just like PIN number or ATM machine. It's a pet peeve of mine when people say that, even though it's so easy to fall into that trap. But anyway, so I know it's going to be a lot of money to fix that, as well as other things. She needs a new rack and pinion, because she was leaking power steering fluid. Although that's the only leak. You'd think for a 25-year-old almost car, you'd be leaking a lot more fluid, you'd be burning oil, you'd be doing this, that, and the other. She never had any of those problems. which, she's in very, very good shape, or was when she went in the garage for a 25-year-old car driven by a novice driver. I blew up the airbags. There was no, like, frame damage or anything like that, and she wasn't about to rot out under me despite 20-some years of Rhode Island, New England winters with salt on the roads and everything like that. So, there's nothing majorly... Like, the car is not a wash. It's just going to cost a lot of money to get her to a situation where she'll be okay. Now, I think I'm going to register it as an antique, so I think it doesn't... the inspections and stuff are not as rigorous. But obviously she still needs to pass safety. I'm not totally worried about the airbags. Not because I feel like, you can survive without airbags. But if I'm going to be registering as an antique and driving it as an antique, I'm probably not going to be taking it on the highway very much. And so situations where the airbags are going to be the decider between life and death are probably going to be pretty few and far between for that car. What I do need to fix is one of the seat belts, because as part of the SAS system, the seat belts have detonators, and they're supposed to lock the seat belts into place. And one of them went off, the other one didn't. Mine didn't in the driver's seat. The passenger seat one did. So that needs to be replaced. Among a host of other things. There are... I could go on for a while about the things that need to be fixed in that car. The point is, that car is going to go to my mechanic in about 2 weeks, and over the period of the next several weeks, if not months, it's going to put his kid through college. And I'm ready to pay for that, I guess. I have to pay back my own student loans, which are many, which start like in a month or less than that or so. It's soon. It's not, I'm not looking forward to it. And it's about to start happening. But, that's going to be the way it is. I have to live with that. I paid for my education, now it's paying me. Honestly, I make a pretty penny, and my, salary is about to go up, because salary, analysis, or, whatever, when you go up for a raise, is every January, so it's about to happen. And my boss has talked to me, like, you did your EIT, which is my certification exam. I passed the FE exam, I did that. So, he says that I've done a lot, and I, deserve something extra, so to speak. So, hopefully that will help with my car situation. But at the very least, I know that I can put a little bit of money into a car based on just my current budget. I've looked at how much things cost. A while ago, I went and I made a spreadsheet just to see, like, okay, assuming yada yada yada, this is how much I am going to have left over at the end of a given month. If I were living on my own, which isn't going to be the case, if I had a mortgage or rent payment of, I think I estimated like $1,500, and I was paying about $1,000 a month in loan payments, which I'm not sure how accurate that is. I'm waiting to figure that out. I'll just sort of have to tally it up, because my loans are from all different places, from all different companies. It's kind of up in the air right now, but either way, I determined that, okay, I could get by on my own. And I way overestimated the amount that I eat, like the amount that food costs, and that sort of thing. And it was also, I factored in, like, travel to Boston every day, which I don't do anymore. So either way, I gave myself a conservative estimate of how much money I would have left over at the end of every month if I were paying for this, that, and the other thing. The other thing is, like, I think I factored in, like, a car insurance payment in there or something like that. I'm all set for car insurance for the next 6 months. See, Progressive is, I have my thing through Progressive, thank you, Flo. They're like the second least expensive, insurance in the state of Rhode Island. The least expensive being like AARP, but you can't get that as a normal human being. You have to go into the military or whatever. So, or sorry, that's USAA. AARP, I think, what is it? You have to be old. Either way, couldn't get that. Tried to apply for a thing there. And they were like, nah, here, try Progressive. So I went and I tried Progressive, and I got a decent quote for my old, 25-year-old wagon. And it was like $500 for 6 months, which for a scrub driver like yours truly is pretty good. In comparison, a new driver with a newer car, even just a little bit newer car, because I had gone through and I'd attempted to do some quotes for friends of mine, would be like $300 a month, or $200 in the first month and then $300 for previous or following months. See, Progressive, I don't know if it's just Progressive, but Progressive does this thing which I don't like, where the first month is cheaper than the other months. Now, part of it is to sucker you into looking at that low price and going, oh, look, this is how much it's going to be. And then the price goes up in the second month and you go, huh? But, the fact of the matter is that's just, how much it costs. If they gave it as the same price for all, 6 or all, whatever months, then I'd be much happier. Because it feels like, going into the next 6 months after that, I don't know what to expect. I don't know to expect a price sort of based on those first, that first month number, which would be nice, but probably isn't the case, or based on the following month's numbers, which are, like I said, higher. So it's like what do I do? How do I navigate around this? How do I do this? I don't like how much gray there is in here. I don't really like how the gray looks, but I guess we're just going to live with it, because that's just the way things are right now. Anyway, but they also give you an option to just pay all 6 months at once. You go, poof, and you pay for all the 6 months, and it's a little bit cheaper. Not like $50 cheaper, like $20 cheaper, but it's still a little bit cheaper. It's marginally less expensive. And I went, I'm probably going to have this car for 6 months, so let me just pay it all now. And so I did. I got it out of the way, which is something I really like doing. I don't like doing monthly payments. If I have the money in my bank and I have to pay something, I'm just going to pay it, like up front. So, yeah. I'd much rather do that. I have one credit card, and when I have to put something on it, then I immediately take it off. I immediately spend the money to pay off that balance, because I hate having a balance hanging over my head. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans hanging over my head. Whew. Anyway, don't go to schools. Don't do school, stay in drugs, kids. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. But the next part of the story is the fact that I didn't end up needing that parking spot at my girlfriend's house, at Madison's house. Now, you might be wondering, why is that? Well, it's because my dad's old neighbors are straight-up G's and awesome people. And they're probably going to be my neighbors in the not-so-distant future. I'm not sure if I've talked about that on the show. But anyway, this is where the story kind of goes off the rails. So we called AAA to tow the car from their house, from my aunt's house, cousin's house, to Madison's house. AAA guy shows up. He goes, I can't tow the car. It's not registered. I cannot tow an unregistered car. So we go, oh, well, can you recommend anyone to us? Like a private tow company? And he said, yeah, and so he gives us his phone number. We call up this private tow company, $100 to tow a car like 6 miles. And I looked it up on the map. It was only 6 miles. Dad kept overestimating it. It's like 10 or 15 miles. I'm like, no, it's really not. It's not that much. Which, with AAA, when you call them to get a tow, you get the first, 4 miles free. 3 or 4 miles free, which is all fine and dandy, except my mechanic is 15 miles from my house. So I still end up paying $50 for a tow. But that's $50 for a tow of 15 miles. Whereas this was $100, so twice that for a tow of a third of the length. Which is highway robbery, if I do say so myself. And, because they know, they got you. You don't have any other options. So, they do that thing. Yeah, I'm not liking the gray. I'm really not. I need to find another thing to put under it. Just something else a little bit rockier. Maybe this. Maybe if I No, because I'm already using this here. I'll find another texture in a minute when I finish this area here. Actually, you know what? I'll just try to find another texture right now. What is this? Oz Rocky Dirt. Hopefully I can use this. So there was a building in Mason's Landing that I put down, and I can't use it, so that was a mistake. So now there's an empty spot where a house used to be. I deleted the asset, kind of not really on purpose. But, well, I deleted it because I expected to be able to re-download it, but I couldn't. This actually doesn't look half bad. How does it look around this? Yeah, I don't like this gravel. This gravel's like a parking lot gravel. It's not... And this is like a dirt. This is really dirt. This is not rocky. Rocky, rocky. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Not totally sure. Let me see if I can find something that's a little bit... How about this? Again, we've got this other... this sort of grassy stuff on top of it, which doesn't really look that good now. I guess it's not actually half bad. Let me try and fill this in. Now this is Rock 12. I bet you I can't use this. Watch this. Let me look it up in a second, and we'll see if I can use this or not. Rock 12. It's just generic enough that I don't think I should be able to use it. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I'm actually liking that a lot better than the gray. The gray sort of looks like a bad paint job. This at least looks like there's dirt there. It looks a little bit too dry. But dirt or rock or something, it looks real. You know, it looks like real ground. So, let me go to the content manager, and let me type in Rock 12. Rock 12. Rock 12. Oh, it's built in. Wait, Rock 012? Yeah, Rock 012. It's built in. Awesome, I can use it. That's a great justice. That's a good thing. And I'll continue using this grass over top of it, because why not? It gives it a little bit more green and a little bit less orange-red. You know, it doesn't feel like the desert as much. I just need to not overuse it, he says as he paints a huge swath with it. Anyway, so my dad, of course, sees the price tag and is like, I don't like that. So he goes up the street. He walks up the street to his neighbor's house, or to the neighbor's house, which he knows. Knocks on the door. Nobody answers. Oh well. It was somebody he knew from when he was little. And I haven't, met them since I was 3 or 4. Just because we don't really talk to them very much. We don't live near there. It's Rhode Island. We live 15 minutes away, which might as well be on the other side of the planet. So, he goes up there, he knocks on the door, nobody answers. A few minutes later, tow truck's still coming, he's still thinking that one gear in his head is turning. And he goes, I wonder if this phone number still works. And so he calls up the house phone in that house, and the woman answers. The woman who owns the house answers. It's like, hey, could we use a spot in your driveway for a couple of weeks? It won't be for long, whatever. And she says, sure, absolutely. And she comes down and she, observes us trying to get this car out of the driveway. Or, we had already gotten it out of the garage at this point, so I skipped one of the most entertaining parts, which was getting this car out of the garage. Now, she didn't want to move. She hadn't moved in a number of years. Obviously, battery is dead. And we don't even know if the electronic system works at all. So, we open the thing on the bumper. There's a tow point there. He grabs this chain, which he found underneath, a snowbank or something. a couple of weeks back, which has a hook on both ends. He's like, aren't you glad I found this chain? So he chains the back of the SUV he's driving, which is my stepmom's, again, she's away, to the tow point on the Volvo, which is a tow point in the front, which is kind of weird for a rear-wheel drive car, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make a difference here. I get in, I use the shift lock override because, obviously, no power. Shift lock override to get the car into neutral. Doesn't really want to roll. I turn the wheel, I crank the wheel. That's difficult. I had to get the key in there to the second position just to let the wheel go. And naturally, as you might expect, no power steering. All of the power steering is in a puddle on the floor, on the ground. So, or all the power steering fluid, because it leaked out over the course of 4 years. As previously stated, this car had a pretty, I wouldn't call it crazy severe, but it wasn't great. There was a power steering leak. Not minor by any means. So, she had been leaking power steering fluid for a while. Of course, we put her in the garage. She proceeded to leak all of the rest of the power steering fluid onto the floor of the garage. Nothing else, though. No transmission fluid, no coolant, no oil. You know, whatever. All of that fluid, pretty sure, remained in the car. Which is good for such an old car. So, you think, okay, this car's, you know, it'll move if we move it. I get in. No power steering, no power brakes, because the car's off. The car's definitely not running. No power steering, no power brakes. I get in, I sit down in the passenger seat. I can't see a damn thing because of all the dust on the windshield. And also, there was like I think it might have been an antifreeze, or, you know, a coolant leak on the inside of the car. Because there started to be this substance buildup on the inside. Not totally sure what was causing that, but that's another thing to put on the list. The long, long list of things wrong with the car. So, anyway, we get in there, you know, I sit down, he starts trying to drag the thing, and it won't move. It won't move. Why won't it move? Because I'm panic pressing on the brake, like a moron. So, we figure that out, and then we get it to move. Now, it wasn't lined up with the door of the garage, so I had to get it to go to one side, which was difficult. And then I had to straighten it back out again so we could go down the driveway. We go down the driveway a few feet. Also, before that, we had to get it off of the jack stands that it was on, which the jack was not tall enough to get it off of the jack stands. So we had to prop up the jack on bricks, and then lower the jack, and then take the jack stands out, or, you know, raise the car a little bit, take the jack stands out, then start lowering the jack, and then the jack wouldn't lower enough. It just didn't have enough range to get the car out. So now the car was just sitting on the jack, which is sitting on bricks, which is stuck there. Although, the other thing is, it was sitting on a board, which was sitting on bricks. And so, the solution was to wrap this aforementioned chain around the board, and drag the board out from between the jack and the bricks, which caused the jack to come out, which caused the car to drop onto its wheels, as it should be. Hopefully that didn't cause any damage to the car. Because it needs something else wrong with it, of course. I'm sure it was just the front end, which is where all the problems were to begin with. So, this is coming along quite nicely. I'm actually really liking this. Anyway. We've got all this area to do, once we finish this area. Although this is like all along the edge there. Maybe now that I've figured out my color palette, I need to go back and work from the other end. Also, I think Train's just installed something. Yeah, done. 0 errors and 0 warnings. High Bridge Trestle and High Bridge Trestle 2. What is it downloading now? Oh, it also installed a New Haven EP5. Nice. And it installed a New Haven Railroad Bridge and Station. And it's currently downloading... Oh. Hudson's. Okay, cool. Anyway. That all went over fairly easily. Holy cow. I thought we would notice it much more when it was done in done downloading and was now installing, because that normally locks the whole game up. Anyway, so yeah, progression of events is this: needed to get the car out of the garage, found a spot for it, at Madison's house. Went there, had to get the car off the jacks, or the jack stands. Jack was not tall enough, propped up the jack, then Jack wasn't short enough, had to drag the board out from underneath the jack to release it, and it just clattered to the floor. And the car was back on its wheels. Had to put air in all 4 tires because they were all going flat. And I did not trust the gauge at all. We had this little handheld gauge. It was saying like 40 pounds and the tires were bulging out. I was like, there's no way this gauge is not lying to me. So I put more air in the tires. They, started looking normal. And then we decided, okay, we're good to roll this car out. We rolled it out of the garage. Tow truck showed up and we went, hey, we have another spot for it. It's literally 2 houses down. Could you help us move it there? And the guy goes, yeah, $60. And we went, yeah, we'll do it ourselves. It couldn't have been more than 100 yards. A tow. $60. Absolutely not. What a ridiculous notion. So, we decided, well, we're going to have to do this ourselves. And so the car was still chained up to the SUV. I'm still in the driver's seat. I still can't see. So we wipe off that. We wipe off the, we open the thing. By this time it's getting dark, too. And the only place to put the car is sort of in the dirt next to their driveway. And there's kind of a divot. And I'm worried that the car is going to bottom out when we go over there. So, also, I didn't need to use the brakes at all when we pulled it out of the garage. And that was like a, oh man, this car doesn't want to go anywhere sort of moment for me. Because it just sort of rolled complainingly to a stop. And that was that. Although it got better. So we dragged it out into the street. There were people coming down this narrow one-way, or not one-way, dead-end street the other direction. They had to squeeze around us. I had no power to actually move the car to the left or right, so I just sort of sat there and hoped they had enough room, which they did, but only barely. We were pulling it up the street, which is up a pretty significant hill. I'm like, I can't believe we're doing this. I'm trying to steer around obstacles and sort of guide it in because I'm acting like a giant steerable trailer. So we need to make these wide turns. And the chain, I'm trying to keep straight, but of course it's totally cockeyed when we do these weird turns. I'm like, I'm gonna rip something right out of the bottom of this car or something like that. Something ridiculous is going to happen, and it's just going to be ruined. I'm going to end up rolling backwards down the hill into the main road. Thankfully, nothing like that happened, as you might expect, because I'm still alive. But we got this car into her yard, which meant the SUV drove way into her yard and dragged me after it, and that was that. And so we left it there. And it'll be there for, maybe another week or so. At which point, I will put plates on it so that we can pretend it is a registered car. And then AAA will tow it all the way to Pawtucket. Because you can't do that kind of tow on your own on the main road. Tends to be frowned upon. Okay. Also, I think I just installed something. What did I just install? I felt that little thing. New Haven Class i5 engine spec. Ooh, yay. I get my i5s back. I had that forever in, like, an older version of Trains, and I never moved it with me. I don't know why I decided I didn't need an i5. Of course I need an i5. They're the best Hudsons ever. Fight me. Okay, up here. Okay, so now we need to start doing this area. This is a much larger and more daunting. But now that I at least know sort of what's going on from this area, which, again, turned out pretty nice. I think so, at least. I think it turned out pretty well. I should put some bushes up here. You know what? Let me go and grab bushes and do that, and I'll be right back. So, oh, here's the VMR. That was closer than I expected. That's right, these guys are really close. Also, a few other things of note. So that's my Volvo escapade so far. You guys will hear about it as it comes up. It will probably be a lot of me being miserable about the amount of money that I'm going to have to spend on this car. But it'll all be worth it in the end. I'll have my luxury vehicle, my blue with the cloth seats, the special order, the antique plates. It's going to be gorgeous. I can't wait. And hopefully it won't totally bankrupt me. So, looking forward to doing that. Really, I am. It's just I'm not looking forward to my mechanic's reaction and the subsequent check that I will have to write. Obviously, it's going to be an incremental thing. He's probably going to have to keep it for a while and do work on it bit by bit as I have the money and he has the expertise. Because it's going to be like, oh, you need this and this and this, and we'll replace that, and it won't be nearly enough. But the first thing is, I'm probably going to take it to him and go, okay, I need you. This car's been sitting for 4 years, so you being a mechanic, I assume you know what that entails. And I need it to run. So that's the first step. I need it to run. And then once it runs and drives, once it runs, then I say, okay, I need it to drive. And then once it drives, I say, okay, I need to pass inspection. And then once it passes inspection, then you handle all the other stuff. Then you handle all the, okay, well, it needs, I need you to replace the clamps for the hood because the hood doesn't really want to close properly. Okay, I need you to replace the shifter because it's kind of broken. It works fine, but the shifter itself is like there's a chunk taken out of it. Okay. I need you to replace, whatever. Go down the list. I need you to fix the air conditioning, or that sort of thing. These sort of quality of life things that I haven't even gotten to in my working car, which I'm not going to be asking anybody about the air conditioning probably for another 4 or 5 months at least. That is not a high priority. It shouldn't be. You know what we can use for this? We can use the non-grassed stone here for this edge. Also, this makes it look like there's little bits missing for, it looks like there's a grid there, and I need to fix that. One of the things I've wanted to do when there's extra grid hanging around is to, and I've done this on a couple of tiles, but to grab a very generic texture, like a dirt texture, and just use the fill all command on a tile with that texture equipped. So it'll take any areas that are still grid and it'll add a little dirt to them, which is fine because dirt's everywhere. Where are you not going to find dirt? Desert, I guess. But we're not in the desert. There won't be any desert on this map. Anyway. So this. I'm just going to get the areas with particularly steep slopes. Most of them are already, most of them are just these two. But I will fill in an area here. I can't see. Okay. So that's the one area that's not going to be covered in any sort of grass. And then over here as well. So we've got like a multi-phase thing going on. We've got the really steep, we've got the less steep, and then we've got the not really steep but rocky, and then we have the everything else, which is just grass. Alright, so I think I've covered the really steep. It's time to get the not really steep. Which is going to be probably a lot of this area here. Most of this is going to be either just the grass or just the rocky, sort of like the other areas we've dealt with thus far. But this is a pretty big area, and it's also pretty secluded. There's not really a lot going on here. And there's not really a lot of times that you're going to see this area unless you're particularly looking around. Which means that I could probably skimp on the grass if I wanted to, but the way that the dirt looks on its own, the sort of muddy dirt that we're using, doesn't really work without the grass. So I'm still, I'm very much looking forward to, in Trains 2019, the sort of grass that comes with, the sort of texture you lay down, and then it is grass as well. I don't remember what the terrain scatter. Thank you. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm looking forward to, I suppose is the right word. So yeah, looking forward to that. Now we'll see if I can afford Trains 2019 after all these car things. But I need to take my existing car in for, I need to take the wagon in for a couple of things. It needs an overdrive relay because it's not going into overdrive, and it needs a couple of other things. It needs an oxygen sensor, which my mechanic pointed out, which I totally agree with based on how it's running. And it needs a, what was the other thing? It was like a transmission, not bearing, mount. The transmission mount. Because it sort of wiggles around when you, when you start from a stop. And, the oxygen sensor is like a $200, $240 job in total. But 190 of that is the sensor itself. It isn't a lot of work to do. It just happens to be underneath the car. I would do it myself, but I can't get underneath the car. I don't have, I guess I have the jack stands now. We're not using those anymore. But the, I can't get under the car. I'm not that thin. I'm not that small. So pretty much everything that's gone wrong so far has involved getting underneath the car. So it's not like well, I could do this at home, but I'm lazy and I'm taking it to my mechanic. I really can't do this at home, and I don't have the expertise yet. I would like to someday have the expertise to work on that car on my own, which is kind of why I was glad to get it, because it's simple. Even compared to the 740s, it's simple. The 740s are, in a way, far more iconic, being the quintessential Volvo turbo wagon. But the 240s are these well-renowned cars, and they're easy to work on and stuff like that. Even stuff that's crazy on another car, that can be crazy on another car, like replacing the head gasket, is pretty easy on a 240, comparatively. So, not that I'm about to do that by myself, but it's the kind of thing where, relatively speaking, you're going to be paying less in labor, and so you can afford to splurge on a part. So, spending the money on the top-of-the-line... Please. Okay. The top-of-the-line oxygen sensor for these cars is, all well and good, because that's it's the lion's share of the price for doing the replacement. And so I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, well, that's $200, and then the transmission bearing, I don't know how much that is, or not bearing, thing. I don't know how much that is, and then the other thing, I don't know how much that is, but so it's going to take a chunk out of my bank account when I take this car in to do these repairs. And then on top of that, I've got the other car to deal with. So it's going to be like my ability to spend ridiculous sums on car repairs is about to be tempered. But here's the thing. Once I have two cars that work, I always have a backup car. As long as I, do my due diligence and take a car to the mechanic as soon as it breaks down, there really should not be a point where I've got both cars broken down. And I shouldn't be driving an antique everywhere. An antique is an antique specifically because it's not a daily driver. You can't get an antique registry and expect to drive it all over the place. But, you will get some unfortunate questions from police officers if you're out and about. But the thing is, don't get one clunker, get two clunkers. Because then when one breaks, you still have the other one. But I intend to drive the wagon a lot, so any repairs I do to it are going to be worth it. It's just right now it doesn't need anything. I can live without those repairs for a little while, so getting a feel for how much it's going to cost to fix the other car is, well, it's more worthwhile in my mind, at least right now. And then when I can afford to be without both of them, at least for a short spell, which is probably going to be like around the winter holidays, because people are going away, so I'll be able to borrow a car. Then I can get away with taking the wagon to my mechanic and saying, okay, I need you to fix this, this, and this. Obviously don't take forever on it, but, you don't need to rush it. How much is it going to be? I'd like to know before I let you have it. And I'll let him have it. So, yeah, I'm in a bit of a car conundrum, but thankfully, I won't be reaching that. Oh, I've run out of finances anytime soon. Even with the loans coming on, it's still going to be more than likely well within my budget. But of course, I'm not going to be splurging on other things like buying locomotives or whatever like that. I will be going to the Big E train show in a couple of months, so having the car available for that so that I can get out there would be a good thing. And by the car, I mean the wagon, because I'm not going to be driving my antique out there, and it's not going to be ready by then anyway. That's pretty much a guarantee. Unless he goes, oh, it's way better than you think it is. But I know that it's probably going to be like $2,000 for starters, just to fix the things that we already know are wrong with it, the things that we knew were wrong with it before I crashed it. So, it's going to be an endeavor. It's definitely going to be an endeavor. We're going to see how I can work this out. I don't want to have to leave it at Tony's without him working on it for a while. Tony's my mechanic. I've said that before, I think. I don't want to leave him with this car that he's not getting money from, and it's just taking up space in his yard, because I know how frustrating that can be. Or, well, I don't personally know, but I can understand. And, as well, I would like to have my car back as soon as I can. Now is the time for me to do it. By May, I'll hit a year at the company. I'll have another $2,000 to play with, because that's my, that was my sign-on bonus. The deal with WSP is you get your sign-on bonus, whatever it is, and then, if you get fired or you leave the company within a year, then you have to pay it back. So, I decided to be cautious about it, and I took it and I put it in a separate account so it can sit there, and I will not spend it until I've hit a year with the company. That way I know I don't have to pay it back. I'm not spending what's effectively borrowed money. Just like I didn't take any other PTO until I had, built back up all the PTO that I had used, that's paid time off, for the Amtrak earlier in the year. Earlier in this year. So, I'm trying to be cautious with my resources, even though I'm, going to be dropping loads on this car. I'm trying to not blow all my money on effectively gambles or whatever. Obviously, it is a gamble to get this car running again. But, cars are less a gamble as they are an investment. You put money into them, you get time out of them. You get mileage out of them. You can do that with a car. And a house, Those are two things that you should not be afraid to spend money on. Obviously, if you have an older car they don't care very much about, and it's, the cost of repairing whatever, issue it has is less than, like, the Kelley Blue Book value or whatever like that, then, yeah, it's not really worth it. But if you have a car that you care about and you know it'll last a while if you put some money into it, then it's worth it. And I can justify it this way. I got that car for free as a gift, which normally I have very little pity for people who get cars given to them by their parents, because, come on. You just got it handed to you. Congratulations, you got a gift of a car. Like, get a job, get some money, buy your own car. But I got it given to me. As much disdain as I may have for somebody who gets a car for free, I have gotten 2 cars for free. And obviously I'm not going to refuse a car. I'm not going to be like, here, take the money. I will, of course, admit that when the car that I got given in replacement for the car that I damaged was sold, it was not sold by me, and I did not get the proceeds from selling it. So it was more like I was borrowing a car for an extended length of time in that case, if you want to justify it that way. But now this wagon is something that I purchased with my own money. I got money, I bought it. I'm very happy with it, even if it keeps doing things to me. But this, the sedan, Nellie, as we call her, I have not paid a dollar for. Maybe I did some work on her, way back when she needed something or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I've not spent any money on her, and I definitely didn't spend any money to buy her. So this is now me spending money on this car. It is as if I had purchased a car, and now I have to spend money on it. That's my justification for, it's like, I'm not just dumping money into this car, I'm purchasing a car. I'm taking a car that is not a very good car, or, a not working car, and I'm turning it into a working car. Which is very similar to having no car and getting a car. Buying a car. So, whether or not you're with me on that justification, I can understand, because it is kind of ridiculous. It's out of left field. But I can, aside from sentimental reasons, I can totally justify spending money on this car. And as well, now I'm going to have 2. And I'm a Volvo addict. I would gladly... So, for a very short period of time, I had 3 Volvo keys on my key ring. And I felt good. I felt really good. It's a drug, guys. It's not great. But it's good. And, like I said, now I will have a car in case something goes wrong with my other car. It's always good to have a backup car. I'm in love with my car. How about that song? That's a song you can really turn up. But then, of course, there's all the other little things. These quality of life things about that may be changed in these cars. The sedan, Nellie, has a sound system, like a radio that's been replaced. It has an iPod plug-in, specifically for an iPod, which, of course, I love because I'm totally in that ecosystem. But the wagon just has the old cassette deck, which has never been changed or updated, and it also doesn't work. So, I don't want to tarnish that car by replacing the radio. So, it's either I'm going to look for a refurbished cassette deck, or I'm going to figure out how to make it look the same, but have better functionality. Like, plug the iPod directly into the cassette deck hole, and not actually have it play cassettes. Because I'm mildly annoyed by those cassette adapters, mostly because they tend to make noise on their own when you plug them in. Other than that, they work great. I think they're a great little invention, but they annoy me. I was totally okay with using one, till I realized, the speakers in this are garbage. And also the cassette deck doesn't really work. So, oh well. It does if you turn it way up, which means, to me, that it needs an amplifier for the cassette deck, and that's really it. It doesn't turn because the belts are broken, but it doesn't need to turn. It doesn't need to turn the cassette. There's nothing to turn. There's no belt. So, maybe I can get away with that. Maybe I can just wire it up directly, Maybe I can get an op amp. Maybe I can do something like that myself. I haven't touched an op amp since God knows when, since I was in robotics in high school, but, maybe I can get away with it. Maybe I can figure something out. But anyway, that's enough Volvo for now. We're an hour into the episode, and I've literally just talked about my cars. So, let's talk about some things. Oh, I have a couple comments. I do have a couple comments. I have 3 comments, and only 2 of them are a couple of them are constructive, and one of them is a legitimate question, or I don't know how to categorize these, but... So, we have 2 comments from Matthew Bacon and 1 comment from Midwestern 261. Midwestern 261 says, bring back the Rails of War server. And short answer, no. Long answer, I can't, really. Even if we still had the map for it, which I'm not sure we do, the thing with Rails of War, other than the fact that it's very out of date now, is that over time it becomes more and more unstable. And I would rather have a server that lasts for a long time over that. The other thing is, there's nothing inherently in Rails of War that makes you need Rails of War. You have it because you can play around with it, but there's no, end game for it. You build railroads, and that's, building railroads for the sake of building railroads is one thing. That's pretty nice. But building railroads to get to a destination is another. And unless every destination is player-driven, then you're not going to have, unless people go out and make a lot of destinations, then you're not really going to have a reason to build or run a railroad. So I had it mixed in with the most infuriating mod ever to grace one of my servers, Custom Origin. Now, this is the part of the show where I defend Custom Origin to the death, because despite the fact that it was extremely frustrating and made a lot of people very angry and was widely regarded as a bad move, I love it. I still love it. I still think it's a great mod. And I would love to use it again, and if we ever do a Rails of War server again, I'm probably bringing it back come hell or high water. I would tweak it a little bit, of course, because, it was still a little bit out there. Still a little bit weird. Didn't work exactly how I wanted it to. But, for the most part, didn't work wrongly. It was a burden on the server, just on the processing power of the server. But if you get over that hurdle, then it's really not, it really doesn't have an impact on how the server runs, at least not nearly as bad as Rails of War did. And it creates a different kind of game. See, Minecraft is hardly a game about trying to find resources. It's more of a game of gathering the resources and then using them for something entertaining. What Custom Origin does, or did, was make it so that finding those resources was an epic in and of itself. And I really, really liked that. The journeys of some people just, in the search for whatever resource made those resources much more valuable and made those locations much more important. See, the thing with Custom Origin, for those who are unfamiliar, Custom Ore Generation, well, you can pretty much do whatever you want with it, but what I did with it was made it so that ore generation or ore locations or patches were very scarce. You did not find one, you did not find many if you went looking. However, if you found one, it was gargantuan. It was enormous. It was dense. There was tons of it. And especially with iron, because Rails of War, that was a big deal. And that made it so that you then could establish a mine at a location and get a lot of ore out of one location. And so now you had an incentive to build, well, you had an incentive to explore, first of all, and you had an incentive to build out to a location. Now, I think the main issue with Rails of War, with Custom Origin, was the general frustration, or, aside from the general frustration of just not being able to find anything, was that people went into it expecting to be able to find things easily. And I did too. I my expectations were much higher for what it would be. It'd be, okay, you find the biome, and then you dig down, and boom, there's iron. Because what I had done was I'd broken it up by biome. So you could find iron in certain biomes, diamonds in certain biomes, coal in certain biomes. I still have that document kicking around somewhere where I had listed out everything, listed out where iron was, where coal was, where emeralds were, etc. So now you had people coming on the server, myself included, really, who expected it to be normal, or at least close to normal, where you go to a place, you dig down, and you find it. And people were not finding stuff right away. People were having trouble finding stuff, and I didn't realize at first how much trouble it really would be. So, yeah, that was kind of an eye-opener. It was like, oh crap, this is a much more, this mod changes things a lot more than I expected it to. However, looking back, it's really just the expectation that was the problem. Now, people weren't thinking like prospectors. People were thinking like Minecraft players, which of course, I can't blame them for, and again, I was in this boat too. But if you're going into a server with Custom Origin, which another Rails of War server, again, if I were to make it, it would have. Because I want there to be big reasons to compete over territory, big reasons to, build big railroads to places. And having a resource there and really nowhere else is a pretty big reason in my book. Then I forgot where I was going with this. Then you would have to start off the game without expecting to find an ore. You'd have to start off the game with the expectation of this is going to be a slow beginning because we first need to find a good ore pocket. We need to find something that's worth building to and mining up. And that's what the difference was. Normal Minecraft, there's none of that. There's no other real mod where that comes in, where you're going around, you're prospecting, you're looking on cliff walls, that sort of thing. You're digging down shafts just to see if there's something there. That isn't a thing in normal Minecraft. Unless you're looking for, a stronghold or a dungeon or one of these generated structures, which, that's something. But that's not what COG does, Custom Origin. COG makes it so that you have to be a pioneer. You have to go and dig these shafts, you have to dig these tunnels. And part of me really would like to run a server with it just on its own, because Rails of War, again, has its own problems. Makes life kind of difficult when it comes to running the server over a long period, because it eventually just sort of breaks down. And you can't keep stock out for really long, or else the server starts to basically give up on you. So, also this cliff looks gorgeous. Just throwing it out there, it really looks gorgeous. So, what else? So, yeah, if I were to run another Rails of War server, I would have to pair it with COG, because COG gives you a reason to build those railroads. More so, build and use. That's the other thing. You can have people on servers that build, whatever. You build your railroad, okay, now what? What are you going to do with it? Ride it back and forth? What's the point? And obviously, it's Minecraft. The point is sort of what you make it. But if you have it now that these areas have really lucrative resources, and certain areas have some resources, certain areas have other resources, now you've got people who are paying to ride your rails so that they can get from the ore deposit, from the gold area to the iron area to the coal area, whatever. And you can make money transporting. Okay, we're going to move, 3 carloads of coal blocks from this area where we found this huge coal deposit and mined it all up. Or, mined a fraction of it up, because these deposits really were huge. And wow, look at all this, look at this, we haven't, we've barely scraped the surface of this area in an hour and a half. But it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And this is the small area, this is the big area. Anyway. And so I feel like, obviously, if you're watching the show and you lived through that server, you know how frustrating it was. And I totally understand. I get that for the people who have lived through it, and every time I bring it up, there's somebody going, no, not again. Yes, again. Yes, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. I think that as far as game-changing mods go, it's one of the highest impact mods with changing really the least. It doesn't change that much about the gameplay other than you have to go and find the ores. Aside, it's not like an industrial craft or a red power where you can do all these weird, interesting, cool things. It's none of that. It is nothing like that. It is on its own a gameplay, game style changer without really doing much to the base game of Minecraft. It just changes the generation. And that's why I think it pairs well with Rails of War. Other than the obvious, as was explained, where, now you've got a reason to build these rail lines. I think it pairs well with Rails of War because Rails of War doesn't really need anything else to be a good mod. And to really, make things interesting. Rails of War is Minecraft trains. It's, there's really no other way to explain it or say it. It's Minecraft trains. They look blocky, they fit the style. They're just something big to play around with in a Minecraft world. They're just a big mode of transportation, and I think that's, if I can drag immersive railroading into it, which, don't get me wrong, I think that's a very good mod as well. But I think that's the one thing that Rails of War has over immersive railroading. Immersive railroading is really cool. It's got a lot going for it. It, in some ways, runs a hell of a lot better than Rails of War ever did. And it has way more, it has a bigger user base, you can build stuff for it yourself, that sort of thing. It has way more stuff you can play around with, and in a way it's a lot more functional. But it isn't Minecraft trains. It's just trains in Minecraft. Which sounds very similar, but really, it doesn't feel the same to me. So, that's my take on it. Anyway, I don't know if COG comes out with a new version. I don't know if there's new versions of COG. Like I said, I would love to run a server with it if people would bear with me and do it. It's just people, and I say people, I don't mean to be disdainful. I just talked about how I have disdain for people. I don't mean to look down on people that complained about custom ore generation, because there's plenty to complain about. There's plenty to complain about, but it's best as a complaint towards, well, I've been unlucky, rather than, yeah, this is terrible. This is bad. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's different. And I think that going from normal Minecraft to a custom origin Minecraft is a shake-up. Because now you're playing a different game, really. At least until you find all those ores. Now you're playing the prospecting game. You're playing a game of stone tools and, wooden whatever, stone tools and leather armor until you can find, iron. And it makes it it makes things more valuable. It makes things more rare. Ores, once you know how to branch mine in Minecraft, ores become a total non-issue. And I think that that's lame. I think that that's lame, disappointing. I think that, the days of being like, oh, I have a stack of diamonds, check me out, are totally past. Because, at least in my group of people, my group of friends, we're all very experienced Minecrafters. Going out and getting that stuff, doing the gathering, is not beneath us, but it's something that we've all done time and time again, and we've all become so good at it that it's really not a challenge anymore. It's hardly a game. And so the game is now building absurd things with those resources. And so what Custom Origin does is take it, pull it back a step and say, well, now the resources do matter. Now you have to find them. Now you have to trade for them. Now you have to deal with real scarcity that Minecraft absolutely does not have. Once you have something in Minecraft, you can make tons of it, and that goes for pretty much everything. It goes for certain trees, or, pets, or whatever. Things may be initially rare, but they are not scarce. And that's the difference between rarity and scarcity. Once you have it, you have tons of it. And that's the thing in these, some of these servers, including my own, where you're trying to generate an economy, you're trying to make it so that people trade with one another. Like on my Minecraft server, on our Minecraft server, we have John Bucks, which are a proprietary currency. And it's not modded or anything, it's just, they're special written books. And there are special villagers that take these written books and, trade for them and with them. It's different. It's special. It's trying to build an economy-driven server. Except it doesn't really work. Because why trade for anything? You can get it all yourself. You can get it immediately. It might take a little while, but unless you're building something absurd, like I am, or Wybold is, or Chris is, or, whatever, John is, then there isn't really a point to using the John Bucks. It doesn't feel like a big deal. It doesn't feel like a real part of the gameplay. It's something you might have to do on the side every once in a while when you've run out of andesite, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. I can shill for custom ore generation all day. I'd like to think that I can convince people to use it, to bear with its quirks, and to accept the way it changes the game. But, obviously, either I'm preaching to the choir or I'm preaching to people that don't really care. It is what it is. It is what it is. It's a unique experience. It turns Minecraft from Minecraft into Minecraft with prospecting. And yeah, I think that's a big deal. I think that's really cool. I'm not sure who's left that's even possible to convince at this point, or if you're not convinced already. But it adds more to the game without really adding much, without shaking up what Minecraft is. It just changes things. I don't know. I don't really know how to put it. I don't know how to phrase it. But let's move on from this. If you guys have thoughts or comments or questions on Custom Origin, feel free to post them down below and I'll talk about them. If I have that document kicking around, maybe I'll post it in the description. But I thought it was going to be cool. I thought it was going to be a great time. In the end, I was mistaken. People were very frustrated. People were frustrated at me. I was frustrated at Custom Origin and myself for doing this. I was very sad that people were very upset with me for doing Custom Origin. But I don't know. I think after that initial shock, I think if I were to go back and do it again, with some tweaks, with some better thoughts, with some differing rules and things like that, I think that it could be really cool. I think that it could be really interesting. Anyway. Matthew Bacon says, "The olive branch, really? Happy face. How peaceful is the run-up?" So it's funny you mentioned that, and I may have mentioned this way back when I started building Olive. There was a book, and I have no idea, I have not the foggiest idea what it was called, but I read it when I was very young and impressionable. And there was a town in it. So it was in the wild. It was set in the wild, wild west, and there was the railroad in town, and it was this, something went on. I can't remember what the hell was going on. Can't for the life of me. But there was a lot of strife within the town, and I'm not sure if the railroad. No, maybe there wasn't a railroad there. You know what? Maybe the railroad was coming there, or they were trying to get the railroad to come there, or something like that. But in the end, the main character suggests they rename the town Olive, as part of the resolution. Because, now all this strife is over, everything's going to be good, and, maybe the railroad will come here. And it was like, isn't that cute, isn't that nice? And it's like, yeah, we should rename the town Olive. Olive, what a weird name, why would you suggest that? Well, because then maybe they'll name the railroad the Olive Branch Line, because this will be a place of peace. And I was like, that's awesome! That's a really cool idea. Obviously, it's super corny, but I was like, well, now I have to have the Olive Branch on Tolbrand. Many years later, 15 years after I read the book, or whatever, I'm building Tolbrand, or I'm designing Tolbrand. Although I have no idea how old I was when I read the book, so maybe 10 years, or something like that. Long time. Whoa! I don't think I was reading that when I was 5. Maybe not. But either way, I'm designing the Tolbrand map, and I go, you know what, I'll name this town Olive, because then I'll have an Olive Branch Line, and it'll be great. And that's exactly what I did. So, I totally noticed the gimmickiness of it. The name is not something that I can take credit for, but yeah, it's supposed to be that. It's the Olive Branch. It's peaceful. It's nice. Currently, though, it is the source of my ire and frustration. And the stupid Olive Branch engine can't figure anything out. And I'm not really frustrated because it's my fault. I'm the idiot that programs it. The engine is not that smart. It doesn't know how to do things wrong. It just knows how to do things. And so, I am instructing the engine to do this, that, or the other thing, and it does not know how to do those things because I gave it the wrong instructions. So, yeah. That's my frustration. It's just the real issue with it. And part of the reason I'm downloading things right now, is because I need something else to be happening during that time span. The session, as you guys probably know by this point, when you start the run session for this route, it starts at 6 a.m. It's supposed to be a full 24-hour session that loops back to its own beginning at the end. So it's a continuous 24-hour session. And ideally that will someday happen. But I can't do that without the rest of the route first, because the trains have nowhere to go and nowhere to come from Cotton Eye Joe. I did that backwards. If I had planned the Cotton Eye Joe joke, I would have said, they have nowhere to come from and nowhere to go. Nowhere to come from, Cotton Eye Joe. But anyway, they've got nowhere to go. The ones that hit the edge of the map, I have them delete themselves. There's a command for that. And the ones that come from the edge of the map, well, I stage some there and give them some weights. But really, I can't stage any more without adding a whole bunch of random staging tracks that I'm then going to have to migrate as I move down the line. That said, it's going to be a long time until I migrate anything, because, obviously, doing this takes a lot of time. But what else takes a lot of time is doing the session tests, about 2.5 hours apiece now. So, the thing is, the Olive Branch engine, the Olive Branch Local, or Loco, as I wrote it down, and now I'm too deep in to change it, because it's a locomotive, it runs the Olive Branch. The Olive Branch Loco is, it does not start, it does not go anywhere, until about 45 minutes into the session. And the reason that happens is because its train is not built at the beginning of the session. It's not totally built. It's mostly built. So, and I may have it get built during the beginning of the session, but right now I just don't have that set up. So, it doesn't exist. It's not done. It's mostly done. But it needs 3 cars from a freight train. A freight train that spawns over here by Mason's Landing, or, way up the line that way. That freight train has to do work at Mason's Landing. It drops off 3 cars. And then it comes to Olive and drops off the rest of its train, turns the engine, and sticks itself in the roundhouse, although I don't have it doing that yet, because there isn't enough room in the roundhouse yet for that. I need to figure that out. There have been a few things that I've changed as time has gone by to make it so that that's possible, but with the limitations of turning engines on the turntable, due to the fact that the turntable is kind of short, and engines don't like pulling up to the very end of track, the AI it won't. It'll stop, maybe a car length or half a car length short of the end of track. I can't put a full-size engine on that turntable. The PRR consolidation that I have, it's an H9, something like that, it does not fit on the turntable. If you place it on the turntable, it fits easily, without an issue, without any problem at all. But if you're trying to get the AI to drive it onto the turntable, and the turntable is not lined to the normal, straight position 0, it won't go all the way on the turntable. There's no way you can get it to fit. And even then, an engine that's sort of close in size to whatever the limit of the turntable is, really, it won't go, or it'll have problems. It'll sort of slink on at less than 1 mile an hour. It'll take several minutes to get on the turntable, sometimes. And that's another issue, because it slows down the whole session, but it's really not a big deal, because we've got the whole 24 hours. Okay. How do I put this? I've had to seek out small engines that can fit on the turntable, except for the one consolidation, which can only fit in the stall directly across from the lead onto the turntable, because it can just drive right out. The Berkshire that takes the train from off the map by Mason's Landing, and then takes it all the way to Olive, is much larger than the consolidation, and absolutely does not fit on the turntable. So, what to do? Well, I can have it tuck in the same roundhouse stall that the consolidation fits in, with difficulty. I just need to wait for the consolidation to leave. So now I've made the consolidation leave early in the morning, and take the first train out instead of the Jeep that was previously taking it. Doesn't seem to be causing any problems yet, but now I'm going to have a consolidation switching the industries in Mason Valley, which is going to be a trick. That's going to be really awkward, but hey, what do you got to do? It's what you got to do. Maybe I'll have it switch engines in Mason's Landing to the diesel that's there, or something like that, or to a diesel, whatever. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe F yourself. So, we've got all this area to do. You've got that. So the train shows up. Maybe it takes half an hour to get there. When the freight train shows up in Olive, it pulls the engine off and leaves it there on the arrival track. And then the little diligent NW2 switcher, which is brand new for me. You guys haven't seen it in action. Comes out of the roundhouse, because it's small enough to fit in the turntable, comes out of the roundhouse and goes and grabs the train. And what it does is it takes that train, and it pulls the caboose off, sticks it in the caboose track with the other cabooses, and then it goes and it drags the whole train down past the end of the main yard over to the arrival yard. And so it's the 4 tracks where we categorize cars based on where they need to go before you put them in a train to send them off. So it goes over there. And while it's switching stuff into this yard, which 3 of the cars actually go on one of the main yard tracks, so it does that. It pulls out of the yard, and then it pulls back in and drops off 3 cars, the 3 cars that are at the far end of the train, so it can just drop them right there, instead of having to pull certain cars out of the train. You know, it's convenient like that. And then, you know, it drops them on the end of the train that has to go down the olive branch. Woohoo! Now the olive branch train is made. Okay, so once it does that, as soon as it does that, it trips a trigger. The olive branch engine comes out of the roundhouse. It's Lee's old model. It's a Mogul. And by old model, I mean model, because the new model is just a reskin version of that model. And so it goes out, it hypothetically grabs coal and water. I haven't been able to get it to do that yet. I've been fighting with it to get it to do that, and I've given up on it for now. But it goes and does that, asterisk. It goes to... Crap, what does it do? It does something else. I totally overwrote something I didn't mean to right there. Oh yeah, it can't go pick up its train yet. So it pulls out of the roundhouse, it pulls onto the, yard through track, or whatever you want to call it. The thoroughfare. And then it runs up to the end of the thoroughfare. And not an inch farther. It can't start going onto the yard lead, because the yard lead is occupied by the switcher, who's still sorting the cars out. And it takes a couple of motions to do it, and each motion takes quite a while, because the train is kind of long. And it's got to pull it all the way out of the yard tracks, then go all the way back in. And it's blocking the yard tracks. It's blocking the lead. The crossovers are set up just so that it's a pain in the butt. So now I can't do anything while that's happening. Now it's got to wait. And so it completes a maneuver. It's its last maneuver that it actually has to do. It takes 9 cars, drops them on one yard track. Or, it drops the 3 cars on the olive branch train, then it drops 9 cars on one of the arrival yard tracks, and then 4 cars, the remaining 4 cars, on the other arrival yard track. And then it's done. I don't have any more instructions for it because I haven't gotten that far yet with the programming. So it sits there with this train. It doesn't do anything after that. But when it arrives on that yard track to drop off those 3 or 4 last cars, then it triggers the olive branch loco again. That engine pulls out of the thoroughfare onto the yard lead, and then backs down into its train, then picks its train up, and pulls it all the way out, then backs it down the thoroughfare, or the runaround track for the yard, actually, into the yard lead on the other end of the yard, and then out onto the branch line. It's a procedure. But, all things considered, it's not that outrageous. Oh, sorry. It is a procedure. But it is the way it is. There are other ways that I could do it, but at this time, I don't think I'm going to change it because honestly, it's been hard enough to get the stupid thing to do what I wanted to do when it gets out there. So, I don't think I'm going to change it, but by this point, it's already been over an hour. So the train is leaving for the olive branch. The easy stuff is done. The hard stuff has yet to begin. And the train is leaving for the olive branch. Gets out there, it has to do a lot of shuffling. It gets out there, it drops off half the train behind it, including all the log cars, so we don't need them first. Because we're out there, it's the early morning, and we're basically just swapping out the boxcars. So there's the boxcars of goods that are the goods for the people that work and live out there, which some people do. There are the boxcars of, there's the tank car of fuel. Well, there's 2 of those. The tank cars of fuel for the places that use gasoline or diesel-powered equipment. It's all diesel. It's diesel-powered equipment. So the forestry uses that, and the, what else uses that? The forestry and the, the log transfer, because those are trucks that go out to far-flung camps. So those 2 things use fuel. We can't do the second one I mentioned, the transfer, yet, because that's all the way back at the beginning of the branch line and the tank car is sort of tucked away. It would be a royal pain to do that on the way in, so it's programmed to do it on the way out. And by programmed, I mean it hasn't gotten that far in the program yet, so I don't know if it's going to work. So effectively it's not programmed, because it's got to be troubleshooted. And so, it's also got a carload of coal and a carload of goods for the mill town along the way. The coal is to run the mill, and then it's got 5 log cars. So it's got 3 boxcars of goods, 2 tank cars of diesel fuel, a partridge and a pear tree, and a carload of coal. And 5 empty Clinchfield log cars. Because 50 logs, well 45 logs is how many logs that the forestry can hold at a time. Any more than that, it stops making them. So it produces a log every 30 seconds, which is like the longest time that I could make it, because it's like produces every 30 seconds. How many logs? And so I was like, oh, 1? Because any more than that is even more ridiculous than producing 1 log every 30 seconds. And I'm going to have to do something with these logs. So, I don't really have to do something with all those logs. But, it comes down to that. So, I can pick up 45 at a time from this place. So I grab 5 log cars. They fit 10 logs each. So, 50 logs, 45 logs, it's going to fill up 4.5 cars. Okay. So we bring out 5 log cars. It cuts off part of the train, including the log cars. It leaves them before the forestry. It switches out 2 industries. It switches out the goods, and it switches out the gasoline. Okay, awesome. Mission accomplished, ? Okay, yeah. But now it has to take the other boxcar and the carload of coal and put them behind itself, and put all the rest of the train in front of itself, using this runaround which has basically no room at the far end, other than an engine and maybe 2 cars. 3 I haven't tried, I don't think it'll work. And of course, every motion takes forever, because with the track mark placement, the engine drives all the way out, and it drives all the way back in. Also, I had to build a derailleur, because the engine would not pull out back onto the main line, quote-unquote, the main track, because there are other cars there. It doesn't matter that they're on the other side of a signal, so I have to build a derailleur. It just won't go. It's like, the train is, the track is blocked. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to hit them. But but it's blocked. Yeah, but you're not going to get even close to them. But it's blocked. I can't go over there. Okay. So I did it. I made it work, quote unquote. So now it works, except in order to switch out the log transfer, in order to switch out that carload, that tank car load, that tank car really should be next to the engine. And that's another issue, because now I need to get that tank car out from where it is and put it in front of the engine, using this small runaround without using too many extra moves. And the other problem is, which end is designated as the front of the train keeps switching. So when I'm programming the uncouples, from number, I keep screwing it up, through no fault of my own. I don't know which end the game is going to decide this is the front of the train now, and uncouple counting from that end. It's kind of ridiculous. But that's just the way it is. So that's been like my last several days. Now the issue is, by the time it gets to the particular uncouple command, which is my problem right now, it's about 2 hours and 20 minutes into the session. So, I start the session, and then 2 hours later, I come back, and I look at it, and I watch it for 2 minutes to see, for 20 minutes to see, is it going to screw it up? And if it screws it up, then I have to cancel it, fix what's wrong with it, and then let it go again. Fixing one command, about 2 hours in. I can only get a few of those test runs done a day if I'm lucky. At work days, I sometimes get 1 or 2. Because I come home, and I let it run, and then I have to go to bed. because I have to get up for work the next morning. I'll gauge it like, okay, it's like 9:30. If I run the test run now, it's not going to get to where I'm interested by 11:30, and I kind of should be in bed by then. So, I have to play those games with myself. I have to ask myself those questions like, do I want to sacrifice like 20 minutes of sleep to get one more test run in? Maybe. So, I started downloading things. Because I want other things to be running during that time. And because it now runs, the session will run until about 8:30 game time. That means I can start adding trains that run up to about that time. Now, I don't want to be adding trains, way into the future of time, because I could spend forever just adding all of the Gilson Eastern trains and having them sitting and staging and running, like one every half an hour or so. I do have the schedule plotted out for that. But, that sort of thing. I could have that. But, what's the point? Then I'm sitting there watching a proven schedule happen again and again and again. So now that I have an unproven schedule that I have to watch, I might as well put in all the other trains that are operating at that time that I can get. And that includes some freight, because the Olive Yard switcher, while the Olive Branch train is out doing its infuriating stuff, has to build the Olive Branch engine another train. Because the Olive Branch engine, it comes back, it drops off its cars for the switch engine to deal with, and then it takes off with another train immediately down the branch after filling up with water. Amazing, right? So, yeah. Now I've got to program that. I've got to program the other engine that's going into the yard. And now I have to start programming the first VMR freight train because of the following conundrum. Olive, as a town, including the stuff on the Olive Branch and the stuff, in the town and on the Olive Branch is it. I haven't counted the other stuff yet. Consumes 15 carloads of goods. Now, because of the theory of conservation of goods, as applied in Tolbrand, goods can neither be created nor destroyed, merely change form. So, in order for us to consume 15 carloads of goods, we have to produce 15 carloads of goods. The easiest way to produce 15 carloads of goods, and these are the other kind of goods, like I've previously mentioned, I'm using two kinds. There's one, the goods that's the super generic goods that's generally produced by industries like the pulp mill and stuff like that. And then there's the other kind of goods, which is not a generic one. I think it's a DLS kind of goods, except I'm using it as the type of goods that's consumed by all of my other industries. So like the paint factory over there is going to consume some form of goods. Probably. And because that's supposed to be an idea of it's a generic product, it's mixed stuff. And the industries on the Olive Branch consume this secondary type of goods. This is the goods in version. The other one is the goods out version because it comes out of industries. And then this one's the goods in version because it goes into industries. And then I will have the Great Goods Depot in Gilson City, whose job, 100%, all it does is it converts out goods into in goods in a 1-to-1 carload ratio. So, I'm going to be putting goods into this gigantic goods system thing, goods warehouses, and I'm going to be taking out the same number of carloads of goods. So that's about a 40-to-16 in terms of actual commodity ratio, because of what the different carloads are. So, either way, we have to produce 15 carloads of goods, because the town takes in 15 carloads of goods. And then those 15 carloads will get mixed with all of the other carloads of goods from all of the other locations, get taken to the Great Goods Warehouse in the sky, or in Gilson City, I mean, and then turned into 15 carloads of the other kind of goods. Because it's all mixed stuff. If you follow my logic there. If not, please ask questions. So we have to produce 15 carloads of goods. Also, I have one more comment, and I really want to get to it. Because I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer for you, Matthew Bacon. I'm not sure. It is this region. I'm not sure what to do. Is yours faulty or what? Please comment more about why yours isn't working and what you've tried. I will try to help you. But anyway, like I've said 30 times, we have to produce from Olive 15 carloads of goods. Where do we get goods in Olive? Well, the pulp mill produces goods. Okay, that's alright. And I think one or two other things produces goods too. But the pulp mill is going to be our main provider of goods. So that means we have to provide the pulp mill with a certain amount of wood chips to create those goods. So in order to create the wood chips, that means we have to provide the lumber mill with a certain number of logs. And that number is 144 logs. So 14 and a half carloads of logs have to be taken out of the olive branch and brought to that mill. Seems easy enough. That's not that many carloads, 14 carloads. It's a lot for one branch over a day, I guess. But with the lumber mill producing like crazy, that's really not that many. We can do that in 3 trips up the branch. And, effectively, let's see. If it produces one every 30 seconds, that is 2 a minute. And if we need 144, that's just a little bit more than an hour at max production. So, yeah, it produces a lot. Here's the issue. The lumber mill doesn't just produce wood chips. The lumber mill produces, as you might assume, some lumber. And that's a big problem. Because now we have, for every, and this is the default value, so I don't intend to change this. I don't want to be fiddling with them that much. The default value is that for every log that goes in, it produces like 3,000 wood chips, something like that. 3,000 units of wood chips. And 2 units of lumber. It's 1 unit of lumber. So now we're putting 144 logs in. We're getting 144 units of lumber out. Now 144 units of logs was not that many, because a Clinchfield flat car can hold 10 logs. But pretty much every flat car in the game can only hold 2 units of lumber. So that means now we have 72 carloads of lumber that have to go somewhere. But where? Well, the place that uses the most lumber is Wombeck, which name change pending. And that's a town on the other side of the mountains. It's on the north side of the peninsula. So we have to get trains there. Well, that means they have to go over the VMR. Except we don't really have any engines for the VMR. At least not any kicking around. Not any really available. So, well, we have to put some. We have to get some, and we have to put some in the roundhouse, and then we have to use them, and then we have to make a train that starts in Olive, which is weird for the VMR, and then goes all the way over the hills. Okay, great. Here's the other problem. Where are we going to get 72 flat cars? Empty flat cars? I could always change the thingy. What is it? The unload, or the transload facility, or the piggyback facility. I could always change that so that it accepts piggybacks instead of outputs them, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense for where Olive is. So, well, then what? I mean, hypothetically, the piggyback facility would accept and put out loads of pigs, but we won't deal with that right now. That industry is subject to change a little bit, but I don't think it's going to change our flat car problem. At least not in a meaningful way. So now we definitely have a major flat car problem. So now we need to get flat cars. Well, they need to come from somewhere. Okay, but where? Are they going to come over the top from Wombeck? Is that what it's going to be? I guess. A bunch of empty flat cars coming back just so that they can be sent the other way full of lumber, like a unit train of lumber. Okay, that's kind of weird, but I guess we can do that. Well, now I have to do that. So I have to have a train that spawns somewhere. Except we don't have a place to put a train. We've got another track up there on the bridge, but we're using that. But maybe I'll just have to get away with it. Also, the other thing is, a train of flat cars is not exactly very extravagant. It wouldn't have started off late at night and gone through the night to drop off flat cars. So, it's probably going to be one of those trains that arrives a little bit later in the day. So now I can't build it yet. Now I can't do that yet. There are other trains that are going to come before it that have to happen. And so now I have no place to put that train. So now the question remains what to do with all of these logs that we have to bring back. And the answer right now is just pile them up somewhere. I can have them sit in the mill, which is fine and dandy, I guess. I could have them sit in their freight cars in the arrival yard, which is where they're probably going to be for a while. I think that's going to be my solution. But it's just a question of, okay, well, now what do we do? And I'm going to be running into this question probably a lot as I go through Tolbrand, because, as previously mentioned, I don't know how much time it's going to take for trains to get places, and I don't have a place to set them up yet. If the train is coming from Wombeck, it's coming from the other side of the map, and God knows when I'm going to get that done. Things, the AI in Olive might end up having to stagnate due to the fact that I just don't have a way to get a train in. I don't know. The only other solution is the idea that, well, maybe we have these flat cars laying around, but we don't have room for 70 flat cars in Olive Yard. Where am I gonna put them? I had a hard time squeezing in 40 when I was like, okay, let's have all these cars sitting around for the transload facility. So, yeah. That doesn't look that bad. Let's just fill in this area here. And then I'll be happy. We've got 8 minutes to do it, and I'll be very happy if it gets done. So, well, I'll just make it happen. I'll make it get done. Okay, so now on to one more thing. Matthew Bacon. Is that your name? Matthew Bacon. Awesome name. Let me look at this real quick and show you. So, edit route. This is what I'm using. Is this what you asked me about? 1950s Glory Years? Yeah, this is what I'm using. 1950s Glory Years USA. Oops. No one do that. Please tell me that didn't... Okay, good, it didn't save. But that is what I'm using. It does work for me. If yours isn't working, I would take a look at... See if it's faulty. Go into Content Manager, see if it's faulty. See if it's... see if there's like a version that you're not supposed to have. If you need an older version, because this version's for Tane, of course, it might not work with 12. You said you were in 12, right? Yeah, TS12. If you're just not getting the cars showing up, that might be a setting that you can change, I think. You should be able to change it, if I recall correctly. I don't remember, I haven't played 12 in a while. There may be like a car button on the splines page, and if you click that, then you'll get cars, and if you unclick it, you won't get cars. That sort of thing. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to fix it, because we had it. We were using it in the Iron Horseman Chronicles. So, in 12. So it definitely does work. So that means it can be fixed with yours. There's something that can be done to get yours to work properly. It's a great region because of the cars. It fits transition era, stuff really well. There aren't really a huge selection of cars. It'd be nice to have more. But, You get what you pay for, and the stuff on the DLS is free. Speaking of which, oh, I already said this. The Sally's old model is on the DLS. I just wanted to make sure that I said it. It's now on the DLS. We paid money for that back in the day, believe it or not. It's awful, but we paid money for it, like $5 or $10. And by we, I mean I. I paid money for it. From Cumberland Trains, which was almost as bad as Pulse Trains, but not quite. And now it's all there. It's all abandonware. Cumberland Trains is gone. So, yeah. Rest in peace, Cumberland Trains. Or don't. You sucked. Now, rest in peace. For a Hudson, for a 20th century model, it was rough. It was not great, but it wasn't bad. It's just old. Like, there are worse models that we've used in the Iron Horseman Chronicles, and I am so glad to see that Laro put out a Gabe model, because that was hands down the worst model in the series. It's just ugly and ancient, and there's nothing good about it. It's so awful. So, no offense to the person who made it, it's not aged well, it didn't have a lot of detail, and the texturing wasn't very intricate, you might say. It's very flat, and the texture itself was not great. But, it served us for, a couple of years, so now we have a better model. Anyway. Oh, I've got 4 minutes. I think I can actually pull this off. Yeah. Now, if you have any ideas to solve the AI conundrum, or any ideas about, hey, use this thing. Use this command. This is really useful. I'm using a lot of weird, not third party, but DLS commands, which are, like, rotate turntable, or couple at track mark. Those two, especially couple at track mark, are godsends for automation. Especially if you don't have a closed system, which I don't. I'll have trains coming on and off the map all throughout the session. So, yeah. Anyway, worth checking out. Worth thinking about. Again, if you guys have anything to say about the series whatsoever, feel free to post a comment. I will read it, and I will comment on it, and, maybe I'll go off on a tangent about it, as you guys saw very clearly today. My AI tangent. Honestly, I do have a love-hate relationship with the AI in this game. It's the thing that, for me, puts it above, like, almost every other game, almost every other train sim, is the fact that you can build these routes and program them and have them, sort of just do. And sitting in Olive and watching the Olive switcher do its thing, and then watching, all the trains go by in the main line and whatever, that's really, really cool. I really thoroughly enjoy watching that, because it's like this, there's this whole world now that's going on around me. So, yeah. That's the advantage of Tolbrand, just on the whole. So, I hope you guys, too early. Damn it, that would have been a great, way to cap it off. The thing about Tolbrand, the whole point of Tolbrand is to get this massive world to run itself. That's that's the endeavor. It's not just the fact that I intend to build 200 miles of mainline for one railroad alone, and there are going to be 3 railroads. It's the kind of thing that's like, this is a hugely ambitious project, and I'm already making these massive strides. And that is really exciting. It may take me a long time to get the map right, and to get the map finished, and to make it look the way I want it to. Or the way I can. But, overall, over everything, I am, every time I seem to hit a roadblock with, well, I guess I just can't do this, there's something that lets me work around it. And it's, it's not the end of the world when I can't do something if I can do it a different way. And if there's ever any AI stuff, so somebody did post a comment about, like, how do I program AI trains? And I've been wanting and meaning to get to that. I did spend a lot of time doing that over, this weekend, but here's the thing, or not this weekend, this week. But here's the thing, it doesn't make for a really great video because it's a lot of time loading if there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and it's a lot of time sitting there and staring at a locomotive if there's not a lot of things going on, which I'm sure plenty of you would enjoy, and that's really what Sunday driving boils down to. It's much less driving and Sunday watching the AI do their thing. But, that's something that I don't want to do on this show, because this show is all about the building. And I'm doing a lot of very similar stuff, and I could do a lot of this, of course, off camera if I had time. But the other thing that the reason that this show exists, because it's not like I've got this huge following. I've got a few people that, enjoy the show and leave comments and stuff like that, and I appreciate every single one of you. But I do this show not just for you guys, but I do this show for me. Because without this show, without having to come here and do 2 hours of work every week, and I say that like it's a slug, it's really not. 2 hours is not much. Without having to do this show 2 hours a week, I probably wouldn't get anything done on this route. Like, are you kidding me? It's a huge, huge undertaking. It's hugely daunting, and there have been plenty of times where, and I've said this, where I've run out of inspiration pretty much, especially with some of these neighborhoods or whatever, and that wave won't hit you again for a while. It might never. So sometimes you have to not just be motivated, you have to be disciplined, and you have to suck it up and do it. And then once you get past the part that you didn't really feel like doing, you'll get to the part that you did. And you get to the part that you're really enjoying. And so, even though this isn't much, this is what I'm working on now, this is an essential part of the route. This is an essential part of Tolbrand. And honestly, it's coming out really well. And the game hasn't even crashed. We've made it 2 hours in, and I haven't copy-pasted anything, of course, but the game hasn't crashed either. And now, my intention sooner or later, within the next few weeks, give or take, is to finish scenery. So that area's done. Finish scenery. So that I did this area and this area. So that's how much I can get done in about 2 hours. Obviously fill in this gap, fill in this, and then build up to Adams. Or, do scenery up to Adams. Now, Adams is up here. That's going to be a horse of a different color to actually get done. But, for the most part, I think we're doing pretty well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Trainman out.